Hello, it's Box News this week. This is KHALIL GUEYE, and here is Falil with the headlines.
Lawyer says people in rural Zimbabwe facing state-linked intimidation. Carnivores are best at predicting World Cup winners. Dutch Senate approves ban on face-covering garments. Caught in trade spat, HarleyDavidson bridges transatlantic divides. Box News This Week with KHALIL GUEYE starts right now.
Human rights lawyer Diwa Mavinga says some people in Zimbabwe's rural areas are being harassed by suspected ZANU-PF activists and state security agents ahead of the forthcoming general elections. He says the Zimbabwe Defense Forces should also openly declare their stance on presidential election.
Yes, we're saying that in terms of the rural communities, there are more indications of intimidation and harassment, and there is need to look more closely at that in terms of monitoring, because it is not as obvious as open political violence, so that we need to have a conducive environment for the holding of free elections for the people of Zimbabwe.
You speak of the soldiers again on the ground?
Yes, we have received reports of the deployment of soldiers in villages, soldiers who are actively campaigning for President Mnangagwa, and there is need to closely monitor that and to call on the military to publicly distance itself from civilian and political affairs, and also to publicly commit to respecting the outcomes of the elections, regardless of who wins those elections.
When it comes to predicting the winners in World Cup matches, the carnivores are out for blood. Sadi Witkowski explains.
Lions and tigers and bears, oh my! These meerkats have probably never played a game of soccer or watched the FIFA Men's World Cup, but they certainly are keeping an eye on it. In fact, creatures large and small are being used to predict the outcome of World Cup matches. The most common method is to offer the soothsaying animal 2 containers of food, each marked with the flag of the competing countries. Usually, the first box chosen by the animal is interpreted as the predicted winner. But the animal oracles vary from the cute to the unusual to the place of origin.
Гадалкой у нас выступает и предсказательницей Тапир.
The fortune teller that performs today is a tapir. Because her homeland is Brazil in South America, this animal got the privilege to decide. Today she predicted that Sweden will win the match.
And lo and behold, she was right. But before you employ your pet to pick the next World Cup winner, keep in mind they're usually only as good as a coin toss, choosing correctly only half the time. Zella the elephant at the Stuttgart Zoo predicted a tie between Germany and Mexico. And Spartak the lemur chose the losing team, as did Timon the meerkat. Zoos are happy to get in on the action, even if their animals don't always quite get it right.
I think we just misinterpreted that. If I remember correctly, she went first to the German box, but then to the Mexico box, and she opened it and ate the food, so that was just a mistaken interpretation.
Misinterpretation or not, this year the carnivores seem to be out-predicting the herbivores. Achilles, the congenitally deaf cat, has made at least 4 accurate predictions for the group stages of the FIFA Cup. Achilles lives in the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, where some believe he may actually have psychic abilities.
We are sure that he has a special gift because he is deaf, and we think if he has not something, so he received anything more, and this is his gift.
But the tide may be turning against the carnivores. This Russian Bengal tiger picked Russia to win its match Monday against Uruguay, a match the Russians lost 3-0. For a hometown fan like this tiger, probably just a case of wishful thinking. Sadie Witkowski, VOA News.
The Senate in Netherlands has approved a bill that bans wearing full face cover in many public places. The 44-31 vote Tuesday ends a sensitive debate on religious freedom and women's right to wear what they want.
The approval by Dutch senators follows similar steps in Austria, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany and Spain, European countries with growing Muslim communities. Right-wing nationalists hailed the decision Tuesday.
I think this is an historical day because this is the first step to de-Islamize the Netherlands. And we think it's necessary because we want to protect our civilization, our Western freedoms. And so this is the first step. And the next step is to close all the mosques in the Netherlands.
But critics say the ban is likely to force some women to stay at home even more than they do now.
So they will not have the opportunity to go to school, they will not have the opportunity to go to learn to swim and all those things. So instead of making it better for these women, it makes it only worse.
A Dutch sociologist says the ban could make some Muslim girls more vulnerable.
I also expect that women on the streets will be more vulnerable to definitely to verbal, but also perhaps even to physical attacks.
The government has described the legislation as religion neutral, as it also includes ski masks and full-face helmets. It doesn't go as far as banning burqas in the streets. Violators will be liable to a monetary fine. France was the first European country to ban full-face veil in public places in 2011. The European Court of Human Rights upheld that ban in 2014, rejecting arguments that it infringes on religious freedom. Bans against the Islamic headgear come amid growing fear in Europe that Western culture is threatened by large Muslim communities. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
European bikers may be cheering Harley-Davidson's decision Monday to shift some production of its iconic motorcycles overseas, setting them steep price tag hikes. The company's announcement move, which could cost jobs in the US, is the latest fallout of a growing transatlantic trade spat between Washington and the European Union. But it also is a symbol of what brings Europeans and Americans together, as Lisa Bryant reports for VOA from Paris.
It's hard to dream of the open road in Paris, but there are still a few believers. This group of bikers meets weekly to talk about their next ride on their Harley-Davidsons.
When you drive the Harley motorcycle, this is, I cannot explain exactly because it's a special feeling inside you have, and it's a completely freedom.
The riders organize trips across Europe, but for many, the United States is the ultimate journey. Some have driven America's famous Route 66, which originally ran from Chicago, Illinois to Santa Monica, California.
I think America is a country of revolution, innovation, big country, multicultural.
The French in general, they seem to have an overwhelming passion, enthusiasm, and interest in American culture. We hear time and time again the dream of our clients to do the crossing of the United States on Route 66, and what better way to do that behind the handlebars of a Harley.
But dreams and politics sometimes clash. These Harleys risk getting a lot more expensive after the Trump administration slapped tariffs on European steel and aluminum exports. The European Union retaliated last week by taxing U.S. products like bourbon, peanut butter, orange juice, and Harleys. The manufacturer's decision to move some of its production overseas will help it avoid EU tariffs that have zoomed from 6% to 31%. That translates into big savings. Europe is Harley-Davidson's most important market after the United States. There have been other transatlantic spats targeting national icons. In 2003, American politicians called for a boycott of French cheese like Brie and Camembert after France opposed the U.S.-led war in Iraq. Jean-Pierre Raffarin was French Prime Minister at the time.
Je pense que l'Europe va
I think maybe it's Europe's luck to have Mr. Trump as president, because it finds a new unity in this adversity, and maybe this will allow it to react strongly. But I hope things improve in the long term, because Americans and Europeans must remain very close.
Riders here believe even trade disputes will not stop French fans from buying Harleys.
Because the people have a passion of Harley. And the tax is the tax. We can do nothing.
Their bigger challenge right now is to escape the Paris traffic and find the open road. Lisa Bryant for VOA News, Paris.
Well, that's it for this edition of Box News this week. For all of us here at Box Television, I am GUEYE, and have a wonderful weekend.